Okay, let's dive right into today's explainer. I want you to think about a deeply familiar frustration for a second. You know exactly what you should be doing. You've read the books, you understand the productivity hacks, you know the habits that will literally change your life, and yet you still find yourself endlessly scrolling on your phone instead of taking action. It is incredibly common. But here's the really good news. This is absolutely not a moral failing. It's not because you lack discipline or character, it's actually a fundamental biological challenge. So today, we're going to unpack the fascinating science of cognitive awakening and translate all that abstract theory into a biological blueprint for real, lasting habit change.
Seriously, if you know the theory but just can't seem to take action, and I'm guessing you might be nodding your head right now, I want to validate that struggle immediately. You are not lazy. What's actually happening is you are fighting millions of years of evolutionary hardwiring. By default, human nature is designed to seek immediate comfort and avoid difficulty. Our brains evolved to conserve energy, not to sit down and tackle complex, abstract projects that might only pay off 5 years from now. So, when you try to force yourself to change using nothing but brute force willpower, you're basically going to war with your own biology. And honestly, that's exhausting.
So here is the roadmap we'll use to demystify all of this. We're going to cover 1. Your triune brain. 2. Breaking cognitive comfort zones. 3. Mastering deep learning. 4. The morning 5. And finally 5. Starting true change. Let's get right into it.
Part 1. Your triune brain and the internal battle. We've got to start by understanding the absolute biological root of our procrastination and our anxiety.
Inside your head, every single day, there is this intense internal battle raging. You essentially have a triune brain, but we're going to focus on the two main competing forces here. On one side, you've got your instinct and emotion brain. Think of this as your primitive system. It is incredibly powerful, it processes things instantly, and its one and only mission is to seek comfort and dodge anything hard. Then, on the other side, you have your rational brain. This is the advanced part of you. It understands long-term goals, it actually wants you to grow, but, and this is a massive but, it is so slow and gets exhausted very, very quickly. When you rely purely on willpower, you're basically pitting this easily depleted rational brain against the massive, tireless, 24/7 power of your primitive brain. It's a fight you are guaranteed to lose eventually. As this idea perfectly captures, human nature is hardwired to seek comfort and avoid difficulty. Relying purely on rationality to overcome this is painful and futile. It just doesn't work to tell yourself to simply try harder. If you want to succeed, you actually have to stop fighting your evolutionary instincts. You need to learn how to strategically navigate around them. You have to kind of trick your primitive brain by giving it the clear boundaries in the immediate feedback it desperately craves, which in turn saves your rational brain's precious energy for the heavy lifting.
Moving into part 2, break cognitive comfort zones, the sweet spot for growth. Now that we understand the internal hardware problem, let's look at where real change actually happens.
Think of your capacity for growth like 3 concentric circles. Right in the middle is your comfort zone. Around that is the stretch zone, and on the far outside is the panic or difficulty zone. If you stay in your comfort zone, obviously, you stagnate. But here is the classic mistake we all make. We get super motivated one night, and the next day we try to jump straight into the difficulty zone. And remember that primitive brain? The second things get too hard, it trips a massive survival alarm. You feel totally overwhelmed and you just shut down. The stretch zone is the ultimate sweet spot. It's that boundary where you push yourself just enough to grow, but the difficulty stays manageable so your primitive brain stays completely calm.
But how do you practically stay in that stretch zone when you're trying to build new habits? Well, it requires fundamentally shifting how you absorb information. Passive learning, just reading a book, listening to a podcast, scrolling through tips, is shallow. It feels really productive, so the primitive brain loves it, but you literally forget it almost immediately. It keeps you securely in the comfort zone. Active learning, on the other hand, teaching a concept to someone else, writing it out, physically practicing it, is deep. Active learning is the only effective way to safely expand your stretch zone because it actively forces your brain to build brand new physical neural pathways.
Which brings us to part 3, master deep learning, the paradigm shift. This is where we move from being passive consumers of information to active creators of habits.
Deep learning isn't just a buzzword, it's a very specific 3-step method. Step 1, acquire high-quality first-hand knowledge. Don't just rely on quick summaries, actually go to the source. Step 2, and listen, this is the most critical part of the whole equation. You absolutely must write it out using your own words. Seriously, if you can't explain it simply on paper, you haven't actually learned it. And step 3, reflect and connect it to your daily life. You have to actively stitch this new information to your existing reality. Just passively consuming knowledge is essentially useless unless you process it through this kind of active output.
So why does this deep learning method work so flawlessly with our biology? Primarily because it completely destroys the illusion of competence. You know that feeling where you read something and go, oh yeah, totally I know that, but then you completely fail to apply it? Yeah, that. By forcing yourself to write and connect ideas, you physically grow those new neural connections. Plus, producing a real output, like a daily journal entry or a written summary, generates immediate, tangible feedback, and guess who absolutely loves immediate feedback? Yep, your primitive brain. This method satisfies your primitive brain's need for a quick reward, all while allowing your rational brain to stay in the pilot seat.
Part 4, the Morning 5, Building Daily Momentum. Theory is fantastic, but let's talk about how we turn this into a daily biological reality. Enter the Morning 5 routine. It flows chronologically. 6 a.m., wake up early. 6:15 a.m., meditate. 6:30 a.m., read. 7 a.m., write, and 7:30 a.m., exercise. Now, the timing here isn't just some random productivity hack. Doing these 5 specific things in the morning takes massive advantage of the fact that your rational brain's self-control battery is at its absolute 100% peak right after you wake up. By tackling these high-value active tasks first thing, you completely minimize the friction of the rest of your day.
Let's break down exactly why this routine is so biologically powerful. Waking up early secures what we call distraction-free meta time. It's time to step back and observe your life before the daily chaos hits. Meditation, it isn't just about relaxation. It is literally a gym for your attention span, training your brain to pull focus back the second it wanders. Reading provides that high-quality input we need. Writing forces the deep learning output we just talked about, actively bridging the gap between knowing something and doing it. And finally, exercise doesn't just build muscle, it physically triggers the growth of new brain neurons and primes your mind for the entire day. These 5 steps combine flawlessly to support and protect your easily exhausted rational brain.
Finally, Part 5, Start True Change. The feedback loop. How do we keep this new momentum going permanently without burning out? The secret sauce here is daily awareness and continuous feedback. You need a simple, reliable daily reflection process. First, describe a specific experience from your day. Maybe it was a moment you caught yourself procrastinating, or maybe a huge win. Second, analyze the root causes. Did your primitive brain get scared off? Was a task pushed way too far outside your stretch zone? And third, define one clear, actionable point for tomorrow. This loop acts as a safety net. It continuously optimizes how you learn and entirely prevents your brain from just quietly slipping back into those passive comfort-seeking habits. If you take away nothing else from this explainer, I want you to remember this core philosophy. The gap between theory and habit is never, ever bridged by just gritting your teeth and relying on willpower. It is bridged by continuous, structured output. True change requires replacing the comfortable illusion of "I know this" with the tangible, undeniable reality of "I created this." Whether that's a quick journal entry, a written plan, or a newly formed neural pathway from your Morning 5 routine, you literally have to create to change. So, I want to leave you with a provocative question to think about today. Every single morning you wake up, a biological battle starts inside your head. Your primitive brain desperately wants you to stay comfortable, to passively scroll, to just do what's easy. But now you have the actual blueprint. You know how to leverage the stretch zone, how to apply deep learning, and how to structure your morning to absolutely set your rational brain up for a win. So, are you going to let your primitive brain drive today, or are you going to take the wheel? The choice is entirely yours. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and I'll see you next time.